Giri Tondra Jiki Shobodo Midene Vijana
Yendan de Wandon de Bon Dushin Pido Sojo Ne Dashi Denjan Den 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 De Jo Sa Xie Beji Juji Metota Rirab Linji Ninde Yebande Sanje Jindo Mede Wewa Dowe Namda Jinla Shibara Jo Yidama Guru Rana Mandela Gamniya Daya
Sanganje
Chela Loje Jonam La Shanshu Bado Dane Xiaosu Dage Chuju Jebe Solam Je Dola Pinshi Sanje Dubara Sho
Sanganje
Chela Loje Jonam La Shanshu Bado Dane Xiaosu Dage Chuju Jebe Solam Je Dola Pinshi Sanje Dubara Sho
Sanganje
Chela Zoje Chonam La Shanshu Bado Dane Xiaosu Dage Chuju Jebe Solam
Dola Pinsha Sanje Hola Sumajana Gitana Bisingi Tanji Tendo Tojalana Me Payanda Zobe Sanji Kumoro Mishkini Tobra Shagu De Tobra Shavi Cheto Tabe Churum Bojisenia Bicolon Sanju Semji Se Sembe Gon Sember.
Let us cultivate the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. With that kind of bodhisattva's state of mind, we call bodhicitta, that we should all participate in this teaching. I believe that all of us are seeking complete enlightenment or Buddhahood as our ultimate spiritual goal.
Panja Megivi Rick that Tamalo that Dini Pakati Kibate Panto, Sonza, Tisonza, Narazo Tat, Tendo Devi Devaki, doing intended Sanji combatant than me added to Ravas.
The reason I feel that all of us are seeking complete enlightenment as our ultimate spiritual goal is just because we would like to find a state where we experience everlasting peace and happiness, and where we do not have to experience any kind of pain and problem. Complete enlightened state or Buddhahood is a state where every kind of pain, problem, and suffering is not there at all. Not only the suffering, but the causes of suffering are also absent, if you will, in the complete enlightened state. And this is a state where we are completely free of all kinds of deluded states of mind, negativities, as well as any form of suffering. The other side of the enlightenment is, if you will, that we, have realized everything that is there to be realized. Every kind of positive quality, every kind of realization that is there to be achieved or internalized, we achieve it in the complete enlightened state. So the bottom line is this, that when we reach complete enlightened state, we are completely free of the two types of mental obscuration to liberation or nirvana, and obscuration to omniscience or omniscient state. And being free of these two types of mental obscuration, we also are endowed with, all the kinds of ultimate realizations, great love, great compassion, wisdom, and so on.
Voilà, ta tendi ga ne ta tendu devi do thoba sheba la ta ani shewa tik ta ni tendi ta khabores ina shewa juni tanda ne tango zu tanda go zu begin tanda zo de shewa ta shewa mangol pha juni ani digba janya tang geva dup to shegu yaris.
So we take complete enlightened state as our ultimate spiritual destination or goal, but to be able to get there, if you will, although it is possible to become an enlightened being in one lifetime, that possibility is there. Having said that, I believe for generally speaking, we have to think in terms of getting there over several lifetimes or rebirths. And so, in a way we could think that, well, we start our spiritual journey in this life. So we start our practice and the path leading to enlightenment in this lifetime, and then over certain successive lifetimes that, we are able to carry on our spiritual practice and development, and we are able to become complete enlightened beings.
다땡데 아니 바 주니 아니 럼바기 바 주니 마서바 이나 땅에 손도 샤빙이나 땅 녀와데 예다데 딘도 샤빙다 최저야 고급 다 이야마라와스 매방아서 통도 딘도 빼납 딘도 알안스로 예비 딘도 통고요 딘솔 아니 최저야 고급 잔문도 왔콜라.
So it is in that regard, it is essential for us to find precious human rebirth, or what we call fully endowed human life and form, to be able to carry on our practice in successive lifetimes. Let's imagine that if we, fall into any of the three unfortunate states of rebirth, it would be very difficult for us to be able to find opportunities for spiritual practice and development. We don't have to, I believe, go that far into the hell realms of existence or the hungry ghost realms. Just think about, all the animals we have in our world system, and we see them, we interact with them. As animals, they really don't have opportunities that we do to be able to study, practice, and grow spiritually. So if we find ourselves in such predicaments, then it would rather be very hard to be able to have a consistent spiritual development. So it is in that regard, it's very important for us to understand that we need to create causes and conditions to be able to find this kind of precious human life over and again in our successive lifetimes to be able to carry on with our spiritual journey and spiritual development. So what can prevent us from being reborn in an unfortunate state in our next life, if you ask? Is there are all kinds of spiritual practices that we could do, beginning with the practice of taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels or three ratnas. And so what is involved in that kind of refuge practice is that we study and understand what are the precepts of refuge involved, and then we keep those precepts. So that's one of the ways, through which we can prevent ourselves from being reborn in an unfortunate state in our next life. So what I just said is not something I just, made it up on the spot here. As a matter of fact, Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa, who is also known as Geshe, has said very clearly, and Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, right now, if I look at myself, I do not have any confidence to say that when I leave this world, I will not be reborn in an unfortunate state, understanding that I should seek refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, out of fear of being reborn in the unfortunate state, and with the faith in their abilities to save me. So if we go further than what Lama Tsongkhapa has said, as a matter of fact, our historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha himself said it very clearly in a sutra or a discourse. And again, Geshe quoted the lines from his memory. Enlightened being, spiritual teaching or spirituality and spiritual community are the objects of refuge for those who are seeking liberation or nirvana. So the point I'm making here is, yes, by way of taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, we're able to prevent ourselves from being reborn in an unfortunate state in our next life, maybe the life after that. But then if we do not develop the genuine confidence in our practice with regard to taking refuge, then even if, let's say, we are saved once or twice or few lifetimes, but if we lack the confidence or the trust in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, we will not be able to, prevent the bad rebirth altogether or completely. Relatedly, meaning relating to the practice of refuge, we as Dharma practitioners or spiritual practitioners must also understand how law of karmic actions operate and function. We need to educate ourselves in the matters of karma, if you will, how positive and negative karmic actions, they lead to positive and negative consequences or outcomes. In sutras, our historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha has said, for example, that if we do not create and accumulate any positive or negative karmic action, then we will never have experience its outcome or results. So that's one of the major aspects of karma. If we do not create either positive or negative karma, then we will not experience either positive or negative outcomes. And another major aspect of karma that Buddha has talked about in sutras is once we have created and accumulated karmic actions, both good and bad, positive and negative, they will definitely bring their outcomes. They do not simply go waste. And there's no such thing as, karma expires. There's a time expiration date on the karma. Okay, now karma expired after a long time. No. Karmas that we have accumulated, good and bad, will bring their good and bad results to us. So relating to this, what we need to understand is that there is no such things as that other people will create good and bad karmas, and then some other people will experience the outcomes of those good and bad karmas. Or for that matter, that we create both good and bad karmas, and then somebody else will experience the outcomes of our karmas, because that is not in the law of karma. We have to understand that the power of our karmic actions is equal to the power of to the power of enlightened activities. So let me illustrate this, my statement, how I said that the power of our karmic actions is equal to the power of enlightened activities. What do I mean by that? And I want to tell you a story from Buddhist literature to illustrate this point. So at one point of time, during the time of King Sagyal, well, this is the Tibetan translation of Indian name, which I don't recall the Indian name at this point, I meaning translator. So that time that there was a war break out, and many Shakya people, Shakya is a clan, got killed. So Ananda, who was, like an attendant to Shakyamuni Buddha, he approached Buddha and he made this request. So I have, heard that, King Sagyal is, bringing war against the Shakya clans. So many Shakya clans people are getting killed. So could you please do something to stop this war? And then Buddha said to Ananda, well, I have already known this, but now the fact of the matter is that the ripening consequences of the karmas have already manifested. So this is too late. There's nothing I or anybody can do about it. And let me give you an example to make my point. So he told Ananda, okay, let me show you an example what I meant by this. And then Buddha, by using his miraculous power, he picked up two, Shakya kids, and he brought them and put them next to him. So by the end of the war, when that whole Shakya clans were completely destroyed, and at that same time, the two Shakya kids that Buddha brought and to put them next to him, they both are found dead.
So that and take an elect namite that those in the Kungal, most Kungal thing is a tongue ransom thing when those in that number is.
So, of course, in the Buddhist literature, it seems like Buddha was giving a teaching or a lesson to Ananda, but as a matter of fact, we should see that it is through Ananda and Buddha's interaction that, we are the ones, who are, given that lesson about the law of karma. When the karma ripens, it is too late to intercept.
That lesson, late nami the Pam Majana. Tawa Majena, and it did Namita, Nepatun Jungle Tangi Hubin Bus.
So one of the points I made earlier is that once we have created and accumulated karmic actions, provided that these karmic actions are not interrupted or intercepted by other antidotes, then they will definitely bring their outcomes.
No. Pena, Leche, Namite, that two chambers, Pena and Atisha ta lamare lama awadute pasundwa kone konta atisha dusin ta dusini somebody can do somebody can pay pedusani ane lama awadute pa do solution mazin that atish joje yugu the pegger so mazini ane that there is some tendonwa Dipalak said, Landage Namgala tap Nepatun Zango Rescano. Lineage Namgala Nepan Zango, Manzana, Anita, Juntuta, Nushita, Tende Yogi Kandiki in a to some of Tende Kandi in a ta, Ane Lege Namite Lesane, Tepam Majana, that Namiting Nepan Yongo Rescano.
So the point I'm trying to make through this explanation is that the power of karma, cannot be undermined almost by anything. Once you create the karma, that unless it is like, as I said, intercepted by some other factors, antidotes, that karma will definitely bring its result. So karma is very, how should we say, senbo. The Tibetan word senbo means, literally means it's very firm and stable in that sense. It does not make any concessions, if you will. So once when the great Atisha was with one of his masters by the name of Lama Havaduti, and they were crossing some bridge. And then Lama Havaduti kind of turned back to Atisha, and then he told him that, the karmic actions, they definitely bring their outcomes. It's very important to understand that. Once a karma ripens, it doesn't matter what other powers you have. You might have a miraculous power, or you might have some kind of clairvoyances. Those things don't matter, because now you cannot change that karma.
Pena lech namite ani goikita juntu yonke yinaya ta sa temple nengi tende yinaya lech namite pa ta mena namite ngapa de nyongo kreskan.
So Lama Havaduti said to Atisha that even if someone is on a higher spiritual levels, maybe they have miraculous power, they have clairvoyances, but if they have created karmas, if those karmas, meaning negative karmas, were not purified, then those karma, will bring their outcomes of the results.
Right. Pena that tende any he is nanja but tende any pege Gidal she and that indeed pay less sunny. The name of which gun on the was.
And then I think in that whole literature section, the Lama Havaduti talked about, once how a practitioner of Yamantaka, because of, not doing the practice properly or whatever the case may be, that he ended up being reborn as a hungry ghost.
That's one, say, George Pandey at the shed, really pays 100. Really pain it, that Jagale, and then Kingi Najo Bakike. And Takurami late that number Sai Jerva. So the change and it's an and Pearly Yoshin Teshi. And go Toma Churang number 10. Jagal Paju Pearly Yan never shake Goni. And it Palov is Kanando.
So this is like during the time when Adisha visited Tibet. And so that time, a practitioner in India, Indian practitioner of Yamantaka, for some of his previous negativity, he was reborn as a hungry ghost. And then he came to Tibet. And then Adisha, through some ritual, gave him some ritual cakes and then asked him to go back to return to India because he didn't want him to cause any troubles in Tibet.
That indeed Namia Mambotikan and the Chesa Tunzu Kangani Le Maje Padam Sheba Chip Mizawa. That Lendik Nangaling Padun Naranso Java Sene, Sheba Senita Lendik Nangat and Padu Tinsi Karsita Balance Kanando. Papango the Pang, so long way to give a shot to so long. Migi to the Papang, Lose Chegre Kananga.
So the important message that we get through all these statements made by great teachers, including Shakyamuni Buddha, is this, that if we do not create any karmic actions, positive or negative, then we will not experience their positive and negative outcomes. But on the other hand, if we have created and accumulated any positive and negative karmas, then we will experience their positive and negative outcomes. It's under the condition that those karmas, before they ripen, are not intercepted or interrupted by some other antidotes or factors. So understanding these major aspects of karma, then what we really need to come to see is this, that in our everyday life, that we do not engage in the negative karmas or create negative karmas, but we try to create positive karmas as much as we can. So that's how we need to apply ourselves in everyday life, to abandon the things we need to abandon, negative karmas, and to adopt or cultivate the things that we should cultivate, including positive karmas.
That lam nintu ranje chanchi lam kandegine tolam topne tolam kadu topinande kola penjechele sad so suyamar.
Now here is thing to remember, that whether we follow the path of Shirvakas or the hearers, or whether we follow the path of Pratyeka Buddhas or solitary realizers, or whether we follow the path of Mahayana or Bodhisattva's way of life, once we actualize the path of seeing, or the darshan mark, the path of seeing called Tonglam in Tibetan, from then onward we do not create any new karmas to be reborn in samsara or cyclic existence.
The Karasana Ane Tolam Todusane lending on the Chugu, Talendi, Code Majabashin on the Chugu, Chesatizi and Tenkota, Ane Megivile, Ata Karset, Sanangamatin.
Now, if you wonder why is that the case? Once you are on the path of seeing, then you don't create any new karmas to be reborn in samsara or cyclic existence. The reason why is because of that realization, path of seeing, that we could see the law of karma function, or we can see the aspects of karma very clearly for ourselves.
That the Yimbayane, can you can judge our Kanandoa? Demba Tona Pem, Demba Tona Pemba Mista, right? Demba Tona Pemba. Tony was the Toby Kanzatan Zuleta, call a Shiji, so call a Pagely Sakmarakan. Demba Tona Pemba Mist.
And I want to substantiate my statement, the one I just made, by quoting the words of great Indian master Acharya Vasubandhu in his Abhidhamma Kosha, or Treasury of Knowledge. And again, Geshe quoted the lines from memory, and he said, "Temba Tongla Pemba Me." If you see the truth, there is no precipitation. What does it mean? If you see the truth meaning, once an individual sees the truth of emptiness as it is, shunyata or sunnata directly, non-conceptually, from then onward, that practitioner or that person does not create any karmas that will precipitate his or her rebirth in samsara or single existence.
That in it, my Shabin, Solam the Jolam Shita, the Jolam Zeba told the tongue is not share memory. Zeba Tobni, Nesona Shigua Martina, Koala Shigi, Lesa, start to Saguya.
And so now when we look at the structure of the 5 paths, we begin with the path of accumulation, choklam. Then we progress to the path of preparation called jorlam. The path of preparation has 4 different levels or stages, and there is a level called patience, seba, patience level of the path of preparation. Once we get there, from then onward, we are not going to be reborn in unfortunate states of rebirth. We will never be reborn in hell, in the hungry ghost world, in the animal world. Okay, that is what happens once we are on the patience level of the path of preparation. But mind it, I didn't say that you will not be reborn in samsara again. What we said is, once we are on the path of patience level of the path of preparation, we will stop being reborn in the 3 bad migrations, but we will be reborn in samsara. So again, I go back to the words of Vasubandhu in his Treasure of Knowledge, where he said, once you attain patience, meaning the patience level of path of preparation, you will never go again into unfortunate states of rebirth. So my reasons behind talking about these things today is that all of us in our everyday life, we should make efforts to stop doing negative karmas, and we should try to do as much as positive karmas. When I should dream the gum jaggy some gum jet, then show it in the Dekbasati Shabanate, Nasola Chapton Droyak, less Sadiku, Chester, gum jay at the time made Dekbasai, but the chicken of Shagina, because I had Mount China Agoya. So let me tell you, this, that let's say, if we say that, okay, I do meditation every day. Well, maybe in the meditation, we do positive things, but once we are out of meditation, if we don't pay attention to the bad karmas that we're creating, then we might be creating a lot of bad karmas, and which could precipitate our rebirth in a bad migration, because the time we spend in meditation is much less compared to doing negative things, once we are not in meditation. So we really have to be very careful as spiritual practitioners, saying that, okay, I do meditation every day, as if that is enough, but it is not. And some might get this idea, okay, I'm just going to recite a lot of mantras, okay, or I'm going to do a lot of reading of the Dharma books or scriptures, but then really don't pay attention to the law of karma. Don't pay attention to creating a lot of negativities. Don't stop creating negativities. Don't do positive things, but simply assuming that if I recite a lot of mantras and if I read a lot of Dharma books, then I should be okay. No. That thing and that's Samalo, Shisho, Samalo,
Rather so again and that chimba in and that kanga, Kikari, that thing around Somalo, that tell when it only tozo that lay the lage quarter, that's something I'm about the tongue of the was.
So the big point I'm trying to make here is, it doesn't matter whether, you are a monk or nun or lay person, but we all need to pay attention to the karmas that we create. We need to educate ourselves about the law of karma, and we need to apply the law of karma in our everyday life. So that those principles apply equally to all practitioners, all people, whether we are lay practitioner or whether you are a monk or a nun. It does not matter.
Some around this song we are was. But not the way you me. Sendele mele messe manyun kuma maku anet loy maje ane chakzu ma hi sta tende santong mangbo yorwas.
Now sometimes we might find ourselves indulging in this kind of thought. Well, I really don't create much of negativities. I haven't killed anybody, and I don't plan to kill anyone. And I have never, stolen things for anybody, and I have never indulged in, sexual misconduct. No.
And that thing I can never hear. You're that and and they each number to pay. Then she may somebody your was.
And then I have not indulged in any of the 4 negativities of the speech and the 3 negativities of the mind. So one might assume that I don't think I really do a lot of negativities anyway. I just look at these things. I have not done this.
Sano Yabo Matana, sound to hear the Matana around summer local. How Mago with Tony that big among which Sagar was.
But if we're really not careful in our way of thinking and practice, we may end up doing a lot of negativities unknowingly. That it's just that when we think like, okay, I don't think I'm doing a lot of negativities, but how you say it so to speak, like that our radar of mindfulness awareness has not picked it, and we could be doing a lot of negativities unknowingly.
So that this one, Pena rank any dicpe lake at this side, you meet the church melon tagoris canon.
Great masters have got this to tell us, how we are doing in terms of following the law of karma. We should look in the mirror of Dharma. So by looking into Dharma as our mirror, then we should be able to see the reflections of our own actions. Are we doing positive actions or are we doing negative actions? So we should be able to see the reflections of our karmic actions in the mirror of Dharma.
Tepe seven was Kari is an epe seven was Kari is an aranso, and they don't but the Changma you meet the Tendusine Tele Shegulatena, the Changso contain the Hako, then Nagig. Round jeweler, knew but the Debamage less saw Kadiji saw you met that doesn't the any kind of church melon or tagu.
Now, when we need to check with our face, whether we need to wash our face, we need to do touch-ups or whatever, then we have to look in the mirror. That's the only way we see our own face. So mirror is a good tool to look at our face and say, okay, where do I need to, clean up, or do I need to wash my face, or do I need to touch up or whatever. In the same way, we need to use the Buddha's teaching on Dharma as a mirror, and then let our own actions reflect in this mirror, and then find out, okay, are we letting any delusions pop up in our mind? Are we letting ourselves, engage in negative karmic actions?
That church melon says that church to some shene, church and Gawachi Rendona, that is the one gay listed. That Mangawachi Yapodinduna, that's so Sangmachal.
So the way we could use this mirror of Dharma is that, of course, first we need to educate ourselves in the matters of Dharma. We learn about the law of karmas. We learn about, delusions, the things we need to get rid of. And then once we learn about all this Dharma principles, now we use those principles and check our own state of mind and actions against those Dharma principles and find out, okay, are we doing anything that really contradicts the Dharma principles? If we are, that means we are creating negativities. Maybe we are generating delusions. But if we find ourselves following the principles of Dharma, then that means we are on the right track and we are, engaged in positive actions.
Oh yeah, that kechihude maranso le ngema shawanga mu saye le tunta. Yan te shawandel pal le ngamba saye ga chand mayana ane the gomchen shwina ndra juntu ngeke de juntu yengina yandra tunzu ni da shawalan sa de ninge somat mebe kanang do was thing about hakogos ngazo.
A very important message that we should keep our mind is that, we have to purify ourselves of so many negative actions that we have accumulated in our past lives. And we have to learn to stop creating negativities in this life. If we don't do those things, it doesn't matter. We might have some other, mystic qualities. We have some kind of a miraculous power. We have some kind of extrasensory power, and those things really are not going to save us. We could be considered as a great meditator by everybody else, but we still haven't purified our bad karmas from the past life. We haven't stopped creating negativities now. So in that sense, the outcome is whether we are called great meditator or clairvoyant or a miraculous person, whatever the heck, but we are going to be reborn in the bad migrations.
No. Tarang shocking as a nation and run samalo later. Public Pungadusiak, the only legend Namgal, but the San Tongo, I think, is.
So this is my focus or the emphasis before going back to the text today, that all of us must, educate ourselves about the matters of karma, and then we need to really pay attention to, law of karma in our everyday life.
Yes.
Now we will return to our wonderful text called A Miscellaneous Collection of Kadampa Geshes Advices.
Yes. That Kasingema in bus. That Church and Jing Ganyan so much some tongue. There's those church dribbling. That the church Jolie Chimbarete, Yantapachimaris Ganans.
Just to recapitulate what we talked about last week is this, as Great Adisha was telling his main disciples, if someone thinks that, okay, I want both the worldly matters and the spiritual matters to go smoothly together, I just want to have both go, side by side, then he said, in that case, what you should realize is that you have made the Dharma secondary, a side thing.
So that Karashagrasana, Maranzo Casing Lavin Bas, Toronto, Maran Tomalogata, you think Shawas andAmenduta, so Cindy, Shagal San Tessan Tongo was in Cindy, Shayatan, Shawa Shimake, children, but the Zo Chishu Shagina, Zo Chishu, Shawa Shima children at the San Tongo.
And then I also explained to you that we have to be practical and realistic because, all of you have to work to earn your living. That's how we need to survive and function in the society and in the world. So you need to go to work, you need to go to school, and all the other activities which are considered worldly you need to do. But as practitioners, what we really need to do is, when it comes to the matters of worldly activities and Dharma, in our mind at least, we should recognize that Dharma is more important than worldly stuff and worldly activities. So out of spiritual Dharma motivation, we can go to and do the worldly things, but they will, they become, those worldly activities will have different significance and different meaning.
No. That the Yuma de David Nash, Tanda Sonsas, Draw Chaprakilla, Tens, Tango Recano, Draw Chaprakin Carresana, Church and Jitin Nani, Church old Dunkin, Church old Zinkin. Not that the nature taught the nature Tango Rescano, that's it.
So therefore, Adisha continues, you should rely on special friends, Now, what does it mean, special friends? What he means is that, so therefore we need to rely upon those friends who consider Dharma more important than worldly matters and who are engaging in the Dharma activities more. So we have to rely upon those special friends. And then Atisha says that do not be in the company of bad friends. What do we mean by bad friends? Meaning those, who encourage us or who influence us to do negative things. Not only that they themselves do negative things, but they somehow mislead us, influence us to do negative things. So those friends are called negative friends. We should avoid them. So, for example, somebody just doesn't feel a thing for the animals, and so go and just kill animals. So so we should not really become a great friend of such people. So the point here is that, those who indulge in all kinds of negativities, lying and cheating and deceiving and killing and stealing and, engaging in sexual misconduct and so on and so forth. So we must not put ourselves in their company. If we do that, what happens is then their negativities, so to speak, smear onto us, and now we get influenced. So we find ourselves indulging in negativities. And I really don't think I need to give a lot of examples here because you know this stuff in many ways already very well. Like, somebody who has never touched alcohol now goes with the friends and who are all drinkers, and then slowly, now the habit got passed on to you, and now you have become, not only you drink a lot, now you become alcoholic. And then you have now the drinking problem that you couldn't stop it. Or that, I should say, the matters like that, that's what we're talking about.
That's it.
So anyway, people who do not really care about hurting others, and they just go and do those stuff, so we must not befriend them.
That this answer is for is gone. Name is never married. There's a kill my David name is dirt. That is a kind of mine. You just run some to the Congoers. And around the time, I should number of doing it so that is.
And then the next Atisha says, just don't, get stuck in one place. Just move around. So this seems like, just keep on moving from place to place. Well, for families and people like lay people, it's tough, when you have families, everything to move all the time. But it's more for really genuine Dharma practitioners, especially monks and nuns, So just, don't get attached and stuck in one place. Well, but I do not mean to exclude the lay practitioners. There could be some lay practitioners who have renounced everything. So, they could follow the same principle that don't get stuck in one location or place, but move around. So why I think I would advise you, like, don't get stuck in one location, just move around. What's the point of saying that? What he really means is that once we stay in one place and make that as our permanent address, so to speak, then many other problems kick up. Because now we think of, accumulating more resources and wealth. Gotta stay. This is my permanent address. We built up relationships with all kind of people. Now we are mixed, in the company of friends and people, and then all those things, distract our practice. Now we get attached to one permanent address.
Voilà, tati yuma de an lukanando. Jishi chue tang tun la jis. Rang shawa lunga ge shawa lu ta nga ta yi shawa kar shebe na. Ane chue ta tuni. Ane shawa che gu res kana.
And then he goes on to say that whatever we do, we should check it with Dharma. What does the Dharma tell us? Is this something we should do or we should not do? So we have to check our actions with Dharma.
So in
this regard, it is very important for all of us to guard our state of mind, protect our mind.
So
in order to check our actions, against Dharma or with Dharma, we have to first educate ourselves about Dharma. We have to understand what Dharma is and what Dharma teaches us. So if we don't have knowledge of Dharma, then how can we check with the Dharma whether our actions are right or wrong? So it's like, somebody who wants to be engineer but has no clue about his or her field of study, engineering, then what can you do when you said, okay, now I'm going to, work as an engineer? What does it mean, So even if one doesn't know much about Dharma or one doesn't have an extensive knowledge of Dharma understanding, but if at least one keeps this in mind that, okay, I don't want to use my body, speech, and mind to hurt other sentient beings. I'm not going to think badly about others, negative things. I'm not going to say negative things to others. I'm not going to do negative physical things to others. Then at least, one keeps one's actions aligned with Dharma principles.
Hala, tati yumadre. Jiji nyumumpi nyembrun roa cheese kanamza. Rang jiji se shawa karisheben megi shawa karagina sungu yamare. Jiji se ate ane rang da gewa kaniji druba yinaya. Gewe le kaniji shevena nyumumpi nyembrun roa chinga badu. Ndotuba chegure kanam.
And next, Atisha says that whatever you do, see that your action becomes an antidote to delusions. So whatever you do, meaning that whatever actions we do, whatever practice we do, we should see that our actions and practice are geared towards to decreasing, to destroy delusions.
Pena tan de chaki nyembo la meduba gomba davtan. Ane shedang nyembo la ane ta da zeba gomba davtan leta. Atende ane ta kanshi nyomong pe ane nyomong ba de ranju she na te lansa tele ane nyomong ba she ba che ne di le ji sayong gundu na tele nga ba de phakate chai ji gogores.
The important thing is that when any kind of delusion pops up in our mind, whether it's attachment, anger, hatred, whatever, we need to find an antidote to counteract them. And that is the key thing here. Let's say, attachment arises in our mind. Then a specific antidote to attachment is to reflect upon or meditate on repulsive nature of body and things. Or if hatred or anger arises in our mind, a specific antidote to that is to cultivate patience. So the point here is, when a delusion arises in our mind, we have to also activate an antidote to counteract it. And specific antidote to ignorance is, of course, in a general sense, is education about Dharma. When we educate ourselves well in Dharma, then once we understand and gain more knowledge about Dharma, it is to that extent we remove layers, if you will, of ignorance from within our mind. Of course, the ultimate antidote to ignorance is to realize selflessness or emptiness. So much emphasis is put on the Dharma education. Of course, it is couched in a traditional term called listening to teaching. And many of you already know, right in the beginning of the Lamrim text, or the text called Treatises on the Graded Paths to Enlightenment, there's so much being said about the benefits of listening to teaching. For example, it says that listening to teaching is, metaphorically speaking, like lightening the wisdom. It's just like generating the light of wisdom to dispel the darkness of ignorance. And then the great Adisha Goswami said that if you do those things, meaning the things he just explained ahead, then you are really practicing genuine Dharma, and so you can exert yourself, you can enthusiastically engage yourself in such Dharma actions and practice.
ane to ngamba ta mandu sikana ne ngeme de des sikana yekela saso gi madis sikse kije chweta timba chise ane kije nyomo be nyembon rowa chise kana batunzu chama da da nge hyucharwa 제자 단다 explain ka ka she chaim bas 제자 tetra shena seta 공 던져레스
Satisha says, if you do those things, or just the way I explained, meaning that Adisha explained several things, rely upon special friends, do not put yourself in the company of negative friends, do not get stuck in one location or a place, move around, do not stay in one place and then accumulate all kinds of material stuff. Whatever you do, check it with or against Dharma principles. Whatever you do, see that it becomes an antidote to your delusions. So if you do those things, meaning, then you are really doing the Dharma, properly.
Yang tak bi chue yin pes, chue yin pe. Tela jumperche na chishos kan na zulu zu ku number ta.
So basically, Adisha is kind of telling us, advising us, and encouraging us at the same time that if you should do our practice that way, and if we do in the way he just explained, then we are really engaging in the pure Dharma, spirituality, and we can certainly generate more enthusiasm to engage in those actions.
Oh yeah, ta kai chenpo jir yang, ta karre san na sung do wa, jala se ate kasi se kasi. Jala siate kasi jala rangi jula yunte shenas Kasi rang Julani Yunti Chabajin Shabaginas, Najachi Malam Chis, Najachi Chejua Mariskanam.
And then Atisha goes on to tell us that if we generate any quality or any knowledge for that matter in our mind, we must not become arrogant.
That and a career sena Najachi Malam Chis. That is the thing that do you want to progress? That is the do you want to draw Kanam.
No, we should not become arrogant if we generate any new knowledge or quality. Why? Because if we do that, then we let ourselves being influenced by what we call demon.
The carrier Najechi Rangi Shebe that Yunti Yen and Ransenta. And the Yens and the Yunti Talfonde Shigama, Tangap, Jibu Insate, Yelete, Yenzani, any Yunti Comat in the Shayak, any Somdesan Web Changa.
Arrogance is a very negative, state of mind, delusion, in that once we become arrogant or whatever little things we know, then we, stop learning from other people. And we become jealous of others who know more than us, so we just feel, okay, who cares about whatever they know? Or that even if there's really opportunities to learn things from others, we are not going to learn because of, this puffed up state of mind called arrogance.
The Lama command soon to was. You Parse, Naja Judge Gombalas, Judge Gombalas, you think some machines. Naja the Jag Sagin in no chat, Rang Duty Jag Sagin, Jag in of chat. That take on a day you think it's shaking Mariskan.
Great, masters have got this to say, and they said that, metaphorically, they put it that if you are arrogant, then you are like this, the iron ball of arrogance on which nothing grows. So meaning that we want to generate and cultivate good qualities and knowledge in our mind, but if we become arrogant, our state of mind metaphorically becomes like an iron surface. So now we want to cultivate some knowledge, the plants of the, knowledge plants and qualities in our mind, because nothing grows on the iron surface.
Voilà, ta rangile yundi chapra jeshesuna, ane ta ngaje meba shene, karashagurusana, wenti nes ta, wenti nes ne ta ne zamara ta tris ani ton chinandi ta, tumbi nes ne dani ran any shawata, to a cheguruskan.
He said, once we learn about Dharma, we generate good qualities, so do not become arrogant. But instead, what we should do is we should find our solitude. And so being in the solitude, we should try to achieve peace and subdue ourselves or tame ourselves. So he said, you should tame yourself or subdue yourself. The Tibetan term is called Dorjee, means tame yourself, meaning that we need to tame our mind because our mind is disrupted by delusions. So we need to, discipline our mind so that delusions do not control our mind. So in that way, we can tame our deluded state of mind.
Never chung to Shakris, when on never chamber says, never chamber says, Rana Jalan of Guyana, Tele Haxe, turned in Yen and do Shebata, and the Zota Data, Treta Ro, Rizat and so any time, Rana Yubati, Coma Tele Haxe, turned in Yen, Tabat de Judo, and a choke Mahipasa, the name must have a choke Shepasha.
And then Great Adisha goes on to say that we should have fewer desires or wants, and we should cultivate sense of contentment. Now this is important because, instead of becoming contented with what we have, let's say we engage in the sensual objects, And then we will never feel enough of what we have. And so if we have one thing, we want, more of the same thing or the better of the same, stuff. And so there's no end to our desires or wants. So it's important for us to feel contented with what we have.
Never chambers is any, you think come to your Samuel around Great Sam Dondena, Catalan the Chins and Dava Chebo, the Chachag.
So literally, Dabachama means, small desire. And so the opposite of that would be the great desire. The great desire meaning that people who have great desire, so they basically want everything in the world to themselves. And the small desire means that you just don't seek too many things. You just, few things that you have is enough,
I see. That Modakimas, Modani, some take call in theatre. Chendo that and Zuka Mantic by that, the Gane Kangba in the Tahari, so see, and it Tronche in the Tahari, Topo in the Tomo in the Kari, he wished this in a second of us. Choke Martate, Ran pay New Year's.
So if we look at our own lives in the society, we will know what we're talking about. You have one house. That's not enough. You want two houses. Now you want a bigger house. Then you want, $1 million house. Now you want $1 billion house. Now you want a house in many different locations. You want one car. That's not enough. On another car. Well, that's not enough. You want a better car. Well, that's not enough. There has to be another style car. And then, all these things, there's no end. And the same thing with the relationship. One girlfriend, not enough. Need two girlfriends, not enough. There's another three, and just keep on changing and, so there's no end to that. That's what we're talking about. That drives ourselves nuts and crazy.
No, that's it. And it that the youth in this on the way, Rang the Until and Mata so much, that Rang the Until at Tajua Maris, that Rangula Until because it's shaving in a day, till it's a day in a tangan, the you are San Peter, hanging him as also Najiche, catching Chando Jetta. Rang the Until and Matas, Casino Shego.
And then Great Adisha goes on to say that, do not focus on your own qualities or knowledge. Of course, he doesn't mean that don't appreciate your own knowledge or qualities. What he means, don't be too much self-focused. Then we started to become arrogant and, and we started to have attitudes as if I know so much and I know everything.
That Rang the Until Mata. That is a huge share of Masose, that Rang Until and Mata, Tangle, Rang Until and Matas, huge share of Matsolstana.
So don't be self-focused on your knowledge and qualities and don't find fault in others.
Council is say that Tomba in there, until any Yule social any precarious. Yomoshi, I could join the Chaguna, the Jason Duncan.
So don't find faults in others. Does not necessarily mean that we become very nosy and just go and try to dig out others' faults. It just could be that, we are not trying to find faults in others, but we started to see faults in others. And then we follow our perception of that. That in that way we generate, delusions. So don't do that. So if we see faults in others and we try to find faults in others, what happens is then we stop respecting others, we stop appreciating others' good qualities.
No, that is it. And it time to do. You put a part of my precious. You put Mepatang, part of my precious decorates canal. You put never said the you put never said the pen around that you number of your do shaving. That is Karina. Nesole sia that the Nikitan Jiva Mabata, Ranka any pay Karsagurita, Yale and that Monday by China and around that she in a Yale Monday around never Machine, Yink, round never Mabata, Jiva finish it. Jiva Mabatan, parts of Mabachis, down Mabachis.
And next, Great Adisha says, be fearless and don't be anxious or nervous. So what it's really talking about is if we apply ourselves in Dharma properly, then we really don't have to fear about the outcomes of negativities. We don't have to fear about being reborn in unfortunate state of rebirth. Because we are not hurting others. We really don't have to worry or be anxious too much. Are others going to, do something to me?
Digwa sarang digwa sabi ne lunga yesu digwa sabi na tan digwa chimbu chayo ta ngai te she so asamne traga tana she ta pa chawa yungu ta.
When we do a lot of negativities, we hurt others a lot. Then we started to experience more fright or fear and anxiety.
Digwa meba ta pa chawa meba chi sum de chani pe ani so to sen lo bo shi ne pe chu dum ne de ju ba chi she ta dikpong ge ya ba shebe na ta ti chagres kanu.
So if we really apply ourselves properly in abandoning negative karmas and doing the positive things, then we really could be more relaxed person because we don't have, much to fear about, and we don't have reason to be anxious.
Oh yeah, that thing used in it. Number of top of my shesi. None to Mambo si German, none to Sinta, sink Matango de Mambo train, a pay that she only to Nipa, Kamaki ring like that, drama, Mambo train, and this is German, none to Mambo si German.
And next, Great Aditya says, don't have too many preconceptions. That's important. Like, within a minute, we generate like 100 different conceptual thoughts. So don't do that.
Because Namto say at the quote, you move short in Sigur Mata, Yen Chu Drake, some Tambina, that did Namto Chagamaris.
So here the namto, as we translate as preconceptions, this should be more understood in terms of like deluded conceptions and disturbing thoughts. We don't mean that, one must not think about Dharma, one must not reflect on the positive attitudes. Well, in that way, one could be generating a lot of thoughts, but those are positive thoughts we need to generate. What we mean is don't make our mind busy of deluded thoughts. And be kind to others.
That is Samba Zambo she said, Yela, Samba the Hingi Gomgare Kananta.
So, how can we be kind to others? When we cultivate love for others, we cultivate compassion for others. So, through such positive attitudes, that we are able to be kind to others.
That Samba the Hingi Gom say ane shuri mapach gongur mato rang any ganya to gom ane rang never sing to magom telishebe nata rang gomte that yantaba majum bares.
As I often, remind you that when we cultivate love and compassion or other similar attitudes, we need to cultivate, them unbiasedly, meaning towards and for everybody. We should not find ourselves in a situation where we love only people who are close to us. We have compassion for only people who are close to us. In that case, what has happened is our attitudes have become biased already. So it's a biased love and biased compassion.
No. Hayang read. The Samba she say at the young she meant the Hase, Numo Patan, the Chatham train, Samba train Romaris.
So here when Aditya says be kind to others, of course it really means in a very positive sense. It doesn't mean that, be kind to others out of attachment. Be kind to others out of grasping. But that doesn't become kindness, actually. That's not called being kind.
The Chatham Mandevich. The Chatham, so the Chatham Mandevich, Shuna, Tarang dying here, that was in Rang never sing it, take also Migni. Did I yen this in your Tamil mini Congress?
So when we really cultivate love and compassion, that includes, those who we usually see as our enemies. We really try to cultivate love for them. We try to cultivate compassion for them. So those really attitudes are unconditional and and are unbiased.
The chat and drain is somebody he gombe in a Kazi Zambola took and driven on Chagaris.
From a spiritual point of view, if we cultivate love and compassion out of attachment or any delusion, then, our love and compassion, just like, we prepare a nice, course of food, but it has some poison in it. So it is like a delicious food, but which got poisoned.
So that, Shamba the Hingi, Singi Tom get a gomni. At the Hingi, when it to Hingi, 다 안에 샴바 곰 뜻이야비나 다 페인 좀 비비 차고요레스.
If we really genuinely cultivate love and compassion for other sentient beings, they are just extremely powerful and beneficial states of mind.
Pande ati joje pande ati 샤 뒤따도네 아니 삼바상부치 스카나고요.
Great Adesha, whenever he met others, he always tell them, be kind to others.
먼저 아메리카 그 택해기는 희생도와 파카가시 되잖아요. 다 조제 반에 택해서 송에때 삼바상부치 스카나고 정말로.
I think maybe in the American, how one of the ways we, tell people is, hey, take care. Well, that is Adisha. Adisha could be saying the same thing, but what he means is, take care, meaning be kind, develop kindness, to others.
Take care, 말해.
So he's not saying the take care in ordinary sense that we are saying, take care, of yourself.
다들은 대자기 인스타는 가지 다랑에 가루다 내데 배 오늘 돈이 sabject 기부지 놓아서 그런 정말로.
So I think Great Adesha has many great pieces of advice for all of us here today, and I think that's where we're going to stop today.
오늘 세계나 다랑 속교게 조제 반대한테 송바테 메시지를 가란서 곰 드바 잡니 냐네 세계나 다시 지역에 차디어스.
Honestly speaking, if we just only focus on these pieces of advice Adesha gave us today, just this morning we talked about, I mean, we could spend whole life focused on this and doing the things Adesha advised us to do.
단디 제베나 샤와 된다 덴바타 아니 사지 공부토야다 안타바다 땡시부 공부토야 그저 참을 단디는 다라송 같은 누구스.
So if we follow the advices of Adesha and try to implement them, then everything is included, that we don't do negativities, we do positive things, and all the things we do bring us closer to complete enlightenment.
다 단다 뜻이엔도 왜 단다.
기차다 유게.
여러분, 그래서
현대 니다 내나로 니체 안들이 계산 라바들 전에 매송 거로게. We have some prayer requests for two people who have passed away, and they are Helen Nelson, Milton Crow. So these are the people's names we got and who have passed away. And there are two people who are very sick, and they are Sonia Gutierrez and Marsha of Aspen, Colorado. So prayers have been requested from all of them. And then we have an announcement that this coming Wednesday evening, there is not going to be teaching because we have some other event going to the Tibetan meeting. So there is no teaching of Geshe-la on coming Wednesday. And then also another request, sorry, I forgot, that after the teaching, please, postpone your visit to Geshe-la. As you can see, he's coughing, so he needs some rest.
당가란서 레 달엘레 물음지 저로시 다 천대던저 나란저 단다 명명서 회배 천대던저 저배 다 신케 망고 기부지다 벤지디지 감 참말로네 다 신케 망고 기부 중요해서 강지말레말에 중요해서 저 참말로 아니 시와 상부 토야다 아니 최대 태야들이 물음자고 그래서.
So let's say some prayers for those whose names we have been informed, and of course there are many more. We don't know their names, but we think about all of them, and we pray that may their good karmas be activated, and may they be able to find good rebirths, and then find their spirituality.
자동고래 제외제 보통
자동계 보통 산예동 강라가
전에들로
전바제에서 창제로 오만에
Ngaranso any lake the church be give it all at any Sanji Tamaro Tajir the Nepata. Javi within the shape of Taman Shikusi Shapi Temper, the 2 Gindo to the Baby Hundu Yomata. Nature don't get any Gendiban the show Pomokaliking in eta, Chu Dubala and Gachi Pachi show at the Tunchin Result and Baby Hundu Yomata. Ane things come to the again the Mutibi result to the Kenny, Tunchin Result to the Baby Hundu Yomata.
Let us dedicate our collective merit accumulated from this morning's teaching to the flourishing of Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness throughout the universe. We dedicate our merit for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and other holy masters wherever they are in any part of the universe. May they live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions, monastics and lay practitioners, remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual goals. May this and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and may beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. In short, by the power of our merit earned this morning, participating in the teaching, may all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of 2 types of mental obscuration, and may we all reach complete enlightened state soon. Tenzin Dorjee.